Hey, welcome to Janktown. Will here, and thanks for hanging out with us today. Now, I know I've been out the past couple of weeks. I had a lot of work. I had some speaking engagements. Here's a picture of me talking about needing more human tribal in Commander. No, I'm kidding. But if you do want to check out some human tribal deck tech, we did do a Trin and Silvar that's updated for 2023. Just plugging another video. But I'm back, and it looks like it's just in time because we have some new Lord of the Rings cards that have been spoiled just in time for MagicCon Vegas. Now, I know Lord of the Rings has already come out earlier this year, but we are getting 24 new set cards, scene cards. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but they are guaranteed to be part of the bundles, much like how the One Ring, Frodo, Gollum, Sam were kind of always included in the original Lord of the Rings set bundle. Now, in a previous video, I already covered 3 of the face commanders. They're not face commanders, they're more like the guaranteed legendaries in the set, namely Witchking, Aragorn, and Galadriel. Don't worry about Gandalf, I will be making a separate tech video just for him. But in the meantime, I will be going over the 20 new scene cards that are going to be released in the holiday season, and I'm going to split them up into separate videos, one for each bundle. Now, if this sounds good to you, I hope you can leave a like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. So let's get to these cards. And I've sort of set up a system here. I've split it into high power, low power, as well as niche and staples. That way we can have a way of structuring our ranking of these cards. The background of each quadrant is sort of representative of what I mean for them. Like, for example, a high power staple is something like Soul Ring, whereas a low power but staple or something that can fit into any deck is something like Manalith, a 3 mana value mana rock, which is really outclassed in today's standards. A high power niche card is something like the First Sliver. It's one of the most popular sliver commanders, and for good reason. It's super powerful, but I can't imagine playing this in like a non-sliver deck. Whereas a low power niche card is something like Dungeon Descent, because even if you're like a dedicated venture deck, paying 4 mana and then tapping this just to venture into the next room, it's kind of pricey, so you might still cut it. Now today, I'll be going over the Gandalf set, and I will be reading a lot of these cards for the first time. I did see the artwork on a bunch of these. I think the artwork absolutely slaps. However, because there's just so much text on cards these days, it's kind of hard to just look at them and know what they do at a glance. Alright, so the first card that is part of the Gandalf set is Olorin's Searing Light. Okay, it's a 4 mana value instant. Each opponent exiles a creature with the greatest power among creatures that player controls. And if there are 2 or more instants and sorceries in our graveyard, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the power of the creature that they exiled. So it's a 4 mana value removal spell for Boros. There have been better rates that have come out. Granted, they're not at instant speed, but I mean, like, what's that enchantment? Grasp of Fate kind of exiles 3 things already. It's nice that this doesn't target, but it is a more or less generic removal spell, so I'm leaning towards in the staple generic zone. At 4 mana value, it's kind of steep, I think. Not super great. The damage might be relevant, especially if you're in like a burn type of archetype. I don't know, like Fire Song, Sunspeaker. I don't know. It doesn't seem very useful. We might play it, but I just don't see how well. So let's move it down here in the Manalith zone. It's not the worst. Alright, next card is called Sorcerous Squall. So it's 9 mana value. Sorcery. Oh, it's got Delve. And target opponent mills 9 cards. Then we can cast an instant or sorcery spell from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost, and if the spell would be put into the graveyard, exile it instead. Alright, so 9 mana value is steep, but the Delve is nice, kind of like in Treasure Cruise mode. Obviously, it has a home in decks kind of like Saruman of Many Colors, a deck that I really enjoy piloting. It is a bit niche. You kind of want to be in that maybe Dimir sort of like mill and steal kind of game plan, but I think it's pretty strong. I mean, stealing an instant or sorcery. Oh, it is just 1 though. It's not like Diluvian Primordial Bonkers where you kind of steal from each one. I don't know, it's okay. It's kind of a middle meh for me. I don't think it's weak. I think it does have its uses, and I think it's quite niche. So we will be putting it maybe a bit higher. No, a bit lower in power. I don't know if this will always make the cut. There are some really good steal spells, and even at its best, it's still 3 mana, which is a decent rate, not the best rate, but it does have some power, especially if you're in a higher power play group. Alright, next card is called Rammus Eckhart Ancient Shield. 3 and a white legendary artifact. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card. White card draw, great. Then create a 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control with Defender gain Exalted until end of turn. This one does seem pretty niche, because you kind of want to be in a Defender deck just to be able to make sure you are able to take advantage of that Exalted, kind of like an Arcades. At 4 mana value just to draw a card, I mean, I don't think there are dedicated white Defender decks, meaning you're probably somewhere in Bat. In that point, you already have blue, you already have green. So again, I don't know if this makes the cut. The other thing with Defender decks is they're usually going wide. They have big walls, they hit with their toughness. I don't know, man. This does not seem to be like the most exciting set. We seem to be putting a lot of these in the like more lower power cards. I think this is even lower than the Storm in the previous one. So I don't know. Maybe if you have a Voltron style, but then if you're Voltron, why do you have so many walls? Pillow Fort, Planeswalker style, Super Friends? I don't know. Alright, the fourth card we'll be talking about is called Courageous Resolve. Now, it's 3 mana value instant. Up to 1 target creature we control gains protection from each of our opponents until end of turn, and we get to draw a card. Fateful Hour, that's a promising mechanic. If we have 5 or less life, almost never happens. When it happens, you're probably dying. You cannot lose life this turn, you cannot lose the game this turn, and your opponents cannot win the game this turn. Kind of like the Fairies Pro, but you just have to be in Fateful Hour. I like this. You know what? This tickles my jank fancy. I would want to be able to Teferi's Pro. It kind of feels like an Angel's Grace in that you can't lose, opponents can't win, you can't mill yourself out. So even if you had commander damage, it kind of saves you. No. Scratch that last one. Giving a creature protection is nice. Would fit into some unblockable shenanigans. Maybe if you have Voltron. Maybe if you want to protect a creature in a pinch, although that doesn't sound super great. But I think it is in the staple zone. We kind of want to run this in a lot of our decks, whether just for protection or whether just for being able to get a creature in, maybe get some combat trigger. I do think it's pretty decently powered though. Like, it's a good effect, good enough effect to just get a creature through. If we're talking about unblockable, what do we have? Whisper Silk Cloak, that's 3 mana value to cast, 2 to equip. Well, if we're getting into blue, we do have those 1 mana value auras. I think like Aqueous Form, stuff like this. So there are things that will, I guess, outclass it. Yeah, I'm not going crazy over it, but it is decent, I'd say. All right, last card now. Fell Beast Shriek. Sick. It's Izzet, sorcery. Each opponent chooses a creature they control, tap and goad the chosen creatures, splice onto instant or sorcery. Oh, that's usually splice onto arcane, which I always find irrelevant. Oh, but it is 4 mana value now if you want to splice onto it. It seems like a mediocre, I don't know if I'll eat those words, but I know that Izzet has been getting a bunch of goad support. They have the Dragon Furcag. At 2 mana value, this is decent. You are getting 3 creatures goaded, and sometimes there are some pretty good goad payoffs. I'd say this is niche, but it is decent. It's probably gonna make your deck though, since it is just 2 mana value. And the splice means it can be repeatable, albeit at 4, which is a bit steep. I don't know how much we'll really splice this, but goading 3 creatures, although the bad thing is you don't really get to choose what you goad, but hey, at least it gets around Hexproof Shroud, Ward, things like this. It's kind of niche, kind of stapley if you want to just save yourself a bit, so I'll maybe put it somewhere here in the middle. But it's pretty mid, but not bad. And that's it. Those are going to be the 5 cards that'll be included in the Gandalf Scene bundle. I don't think there are any particular home runs in it, so if you're going to buy the bundle, you better love the Gandalf. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did I miss something? Is anything going over my head? Or maybe you just agree with it completely and just want to show some love. Either way, I really appreciate the feedback. I hope you can leave a like, share, and subscribe. I will be tackling the other cards, or rather the other sets, in upcoming videos, so stick around for that. In the meantime, stay inspired, friends, and I'll see you soon.